Hello again, grown black folks talk. What is your plan for the recession if somehow you get the Uno reverse card? Anybody who plays Uno knows that you can get a card called reverse, which reverses out whatever it is that you have going on. Black women making money did a very interesting video. A community post today informing us that there are states, at least one, that is considering moving the topic of reparation for African Americans into their legislature next year, and next year is but a few days away. Obviously, some cities, talking to a friend of mine, and we talked about investments, and some states and some cities are not waiting on the federal government to study this. Now, if you go on and read the fine print, all this is still in the studying stage, and people even talking about extending the studies because they're still not sure. So this doesn't mean that any of the money is actually going to be in African American pockets next year. It just means that people are talking about it. But Black Women Making Money asked me, and I'm being purposely vague. If you want to know about what state is involved, go look at it. Black Women Making Money. I've mentioned her channel a bunch of times. I'm not going to steal her thunder. This is her thought exercise. I'm going to generalize it for a slightly different audience. That's not the only way that people's fortunes next year could get that Uno reverse card. Everybody's just recession, 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 recession. In the crypto world, doom, gloom, and agony because of what happened to FTX. Of course, our good brothers and sisters in the Bahamas, our Bahamian sisters and brothers in the diaspora have gotten hold of the fried Bankman, Sam Bankman Fried, and have picked him up for conveniently mishandling $200 billion worth of people's crypto. But there's a lot of stuff going on out here. There's stuff going on with the Federal Reserve, and inflation is falling, and are they going to pivot, and so forth and so forth and so forth. But a lot of times financially, we fail to plan, and then we plan to fail. And of course, we all hope that 2023 will be prosperous, even though we have all this in our ears talking about recession, recession, recession. I already did the video talking about people who are rooting for the entire United States economy to collapse so they can get to wherever it is they desperately trying to go on top of the necks of you and me. I already talked about that. So we have all that in our ears. We have a lot going on in these YouTube streets. But the thing about it is, you have Deion Sanders, you have all the stuff going on around that. You have all the different various things going on in all the different various spaces. But you know what? The thing about it is, all the way from Jackson State, which Deion Sanders just left, all the way down to these internet streets, people do not realize the only thing running faster than the ink on their receipts is their mouth. So it is not always necessary for us to waste time addressing everything that happens. Sometimes we need to focus on things that will help us prosper. And this is going to be our thought exercise for today. Let's say you do hit that number in 2023. Let's say that you have a business idea or a product that really takes off. I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm typesetting his book. And he and I both think this book is needed and will go somewhere. And I can't give you any details right now. But what happens? Because he was talking about, I need to automate this and I need to automate that because I don't want to spend my entire life handling orders. He's a very wise man to do that. He's planning for success. And what I want to talk to you about as a thought for 2023 is, let's say that you come into whatever it is you think you need next year. Let's say that were to happen. Have you started the thought process necessary? Do you know what you would do if you came into six-figure money, seven-figure money, eight-figure money? We'll start there. That's enough. Actually, we'll take six figures just to start with. Do you know what quadrant? If you know quadrant, there's only three things here. Do you know what category these things are coming from? Are you going to get a raise? Are you going to have a business idea? Or are you going to do something in investments? Or is it just going to be some kind of windfall? What would you do? What would you do? I'm not going to tell you what to do. I am not a financial advisor. But because Black Women Making Money put this information out, I went through a little bit of a thought exercise and I'm going to shape it a little bit differently for this audience. Life comes at you fast. And one thing we're going to have to stop being, and this is not quite a word, it's a word in the streets, but it hasn't made the dictionary, but unserious. People are performing all kinds of stuff, but in terms of being responsible for the foolishness that they're performing and dealing with the consequences of what they're doing and saying, they're unserious. I saw the most terrible picture today. I don't follow Megan Thee Stallion that much, but the man who shot her showed up in court with his little boy. What did he have to do with that? What did Tori's little son have to do with that? When you don't protect your children from unnecessary public scrutiny in the middle of a trial or a felony crime, you are unserious about being a father. People are unserious about the most sacred duties. People are unserious about the most sacred duties, and we're going to have to get over doing that. I have another video to do about this. I learned something from Michael Jordan, which also epitomized some other things I see in these streets. And we are not serious. We are unserious about the very people we look at like, you need to change, you need to change. We are unserious about doing what is necessary for them to actually do that, because shaming and blaming is so much more fun to us. We're unserious. But about money, life comes at you fast. But we're going to keep it on the positive side for this video. What would you do? Whatever the first three things you think about, as the Bible says, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. That also goes for women as well. That's mankind. Anthropos, the human race in Greek, ancient Koine Greek. So, what comes to mind? If you had $1 million, what are the first three things you want to do? And whatever your first three things are, I'm not judging any of it. I want you to fantasize to the nth degree. But what I want you to do before we hit 2023 is to step back and ask yourself this question. Where are those top three things coming from? Obviously, paying off debt may be one. Obviously, doing something that you're doing for the rest of your life. Obviously, having access to whatever. I'm not judging it. Like I tell my Sunday school students, a lot of them are in their second decade of life. They're coming to me with amazing things. And I'm like, this is no judgment zone. You tell me exactly how you feel, because I'm not going to judge you and I'm not going to repeat it. Tell me exactly how you feel about this, that, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth. Because God is not intimidated by you feeling the way you feel and having the questions that you have. It's not even my business what you think. But what I want you to do is to examine. If you came into a windfall, what are the first three things you would do and why? Examine your reasoning. Sit with yourself and determine what your priorities are. And then I want you to sit with yourself and think, which of these things come from a history of deprivation? In other words, this is a wonderful way to discover, what am I using money to paper over in my life? Was I overlooked in high school for whatever reason? Was I overlooked in my formative years for whatever reason? And am I using money and status to paper over that? That's true for men or women. Is there something I need to truly escape from? And money is the only thing missing for me to get out. And is money the only thing? And are there other resources available? And do I need to open my mouth and ask? Am I thinking enough about my future when I will not be able to work anymore or do whatever it is I do anymore? Is that in the top three at all? Because we're not going to be young and strong forever. 41 is different from 21 and 31, and 42 is right over the hill for me. Yeah, my family has longevity. If I take care of myself, I'll probably be able to do a lot of things I want to do for a long time. But you don't know that. Life comes at you fast. I was talking to a mentor of mine who buried her daughter at age 42. She was only 3 months older than me. So is your future. If you have children, and if you are thinking that someday you may have grandchildren, the Bible also says the righteous leaves an inheritance to his children and his children's children. Now, as I pointed out to a fellow believer in the Abrahamic religions today, uh, the emphasis is on the men doing these things, but some of us are in situations where there are no men to do it. So then what does that mean? It's on you if you're a single mother. And, shout out if we have some single fathers. It's on you. There's only one of you there. So are you thinking about your children's children when you come into this $1 million? And if you are in a situation where I need all this for myself, okay, that's possible. I know people who've had $1 million worth of student loan debt. It is entirely possible to get into a situation like that because of interest. I'm not judging whatever it is you think about. It ain't none of my business. You do not need to post it in the comments. But I want you to start doing the thought processes necessary to be able to handle big money. Almost anybody, even if you make $25,000 a year, you will handle if you do that steady every year, you will handle $1 million in 40 years. So you started work at 20, you worked till 60, you would have handled $1 million. That's no money. If you worked 10 years, you would have handled $250,000. Now, where would that money go? Basic living expenses, and there'll be gaps there too, because in the United States of America, that's not much money. But there are people who are preppers and minimalists who can live on $25,000 a year and live well by their standards because they don't need all this stuff. They don't need all this. They don't need all that. They don't need all this. They don't need all that. Because everybody gets to handle, if you have been employed, you can handle $1 million starting at $25,000 a year. It depends on what you do with it. But unless you begin to think about in 2023 what you would do if your ship finally came in, I guarantee you won't be ready. And there will be opportunities you will never see and never go after because you are not ready. When we are not ready and we are not confident in things, our insecurity will keep us from seizing opportunities. I'm going to say that again because many of us have never thought about why we haven't gotten where we're going to go, where we want to go, why we never got there, because we knew that we were not ready and we self sabotaged. Many people do not have money because they have not dealt with all the insecurities they have around their feelings about money. I had to confront a little bit of that in myself this year. I have some I have some things in my family background that were wonderful advice in the 19th and 20th centuries, and they are terrible in the 21st. It's like black women making money said on another community post. Forget about in this inflation environment, forget about throwing money up for retirement in some account somewhere, unless you're getting above 7, 8, 9, 10% interest, but those are high risk. So what you want to do is buy cash flow instead. Nobody was talking about that 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Very few. Lifetime income report, maybe. But very few people were up here talking about buy cash flow. That's not common information. So I had to confront myself on why am I not making certain moves? It's because I was insecure because I knew I didn't know enough. And I'm self-sabotaging myself and not seizing perfect opportunities. Now that I have gotten over that hump, investors find me. And I am by no means a rich person, but the mindset has cleared up. I was told by someone who sought me for a small investment. They said, "You are the only person who we have ever approached about this, and you would be the only investor we've ever had who actually have asked the appropriate questions." Well, it helps to know the appropriate questions to ask. And again, when you find investments that are small, they're small. They don't take thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to get into. They're still small. But you still have to know what to ask, and you still have to be comfortable with risk, and you still have to be comfortable with new ideas about money, whereby not thinking about cash flow and in which leaving money in the bank just to leave it there is very, very risky. More so than learning how to take calculated risk in the market. I had to deal with that for myself this year. I want you to do the work. You want to have prosperity, you need to do the work to start thinking about somebody who's going to be prosperous. You need to examine what would there be in the way, where would I self-sabotage myself? Am I trying to buy my way to something? Am I trying to buy my way to something so I can feel like I have some value? Maybe I need to work on what it was that traumatized me so that I don't think I have any value and solve that first so that I don't waste this opportunity trying to compensate temporarily with money that is also going to be very temporary. Have I thought enough about my future? Do I feel like I have a future worth living? And if I don't, what can I do to fix that? These are the kind of thoughts that are going to allow you to have the opportunities and to seize the opportunities and properly use the opportunities that will still come your way in 2023, whether there is a recession or not. You do know that there are people who do not participate in recessions, and you can be one of them, right? Yes, you can. Now, can you do that from today? Depending on how much you have already are in financial trouble? No, you can't. You know, I have to recognize that many of you, by no fault of your own, you do not start from a position in which you have a clean slate. You got family stuff that went wrong, you have personal stuff that went wrong, and your slate is not a clean slate because there was stuff you had to deal with. It's called life. You don't just have something that something could just fall into the ether for you. And that's actually most people by the time they get to be 40 and 41. I know everybody has situations. But if you are ever going to make the shift between constantly thinking about hand to mouth, constantly struggling, when you have opportunities fall into your lap, you have to think about how to make those opportunities last and stretch and grow. So I'm giving you an opportunity today. Think about that first million. What do you plan to do with it? What do those plans come from? And clean up what needs to be cleaned up as best you can and enhance that which is good. This is a good time in a bear market to begin learning about and making small investment because the market is down. Black men, women making money will help you a lot with that. JT Automations will help you a lot with that. I mention these channels all the time for a reason. There are many more. If you want to really walk on the wild side, What the Finance? WT Finance. There's a lot of people out there that can help you with that. Take your mind away from dealing with people who the only thing running faster than the ink on their receipts that we all have is just their mouth. Take your attention away from that. Because again, life comes at you fast. My mentor's daughter passing away is not the only news I got today that reminded me of that. The future's not guaranteed. So do you have things in place for your children? Do you have things in place for yourself? Time to think about these things. So when that Uno reverse card hits you during the middle of the recession, you got it covered. All right. Y'all have a good day now. Goodbye. Thank you for listening.